50?
It's hard to do a lot of stuff on the mission. And honestly, I didn't, the PowerPoint presentation, I didn't get a whole lot to spend. Because I noticed through the way that I spent about 7 or 8 hours on the PowerPoint, but I had to do it over like 2 or 3 times.
Amen.
Because it took me the first couple of times I was doing it, I had no idea what I was doing. Even then, I'm not.
First PowerPoint.
And I know part of this, I know this is a little repetitive. Okay, try to start over. I spent about 20 hours on this, and about 7 hours on the PowerPoint. The PowerPoint I had to do over a few times. I know right now, just because I was going over it, it was a little repetitive. I know I was worried because I had a lot of stuff for hermeneutics on all of it, but really quickly I wanted to concentrate on the communication aspect and the language aspect. So I had a lot of stuff that I had written in my notes that I didn't end up putting in this because I was worried that I put so much information in that it would detract from the core message I was trying to get across.
The comparison of the Tower of Babel and what took place there regarding language, and the comparison the day of when they got good communication from God and were able to communicate one another. When and your comparison there was excellent. That was an excellent springboard for what you wanted to do. Scripture was excellent. Your scripture choices were excellent. I appreciated the way you gave for each area, gave Babylon or Tower Babel background information. You didn't belabor that.
But honestly, the more that I look at it, although it's informative, it kind of detracts from the overall message I was trying to give. And it was weird because I know you wanted me to do this like it was a counseling session.
Right.
And so that's why I had a lot of information that I researched, but again, it was as more as I was right now, I started to detract from this specific point that I was trying to do.
Amen.
I wasn't sure that that
Always will have more information than what you'll share. But the information, as long as you take good notes when you're doing your study, that information from years of experience, that information down through the years will not go on. It was a great transition from what you shared to what would lie ahead. When you said we will discuss this further in future sessions, because a lot of, especially if you got a few wind up, and the people or the group is saying, okay, that's great.
right. Well, I know.
Give them a
Eventually I'll get more about this. By giving them work to do, and I was trying to think this from my living experience. What if I was trying to give them stuff to work on and how, to prepare? Obviously, part of it is they're having trouble with communicating. Part of it having, like, so far in that, they're having with communicating because they're putting themselves first and not him. One of the ways quickest way to try to put God back in life quickly, pray and read.
And then also for when you get to the next session, follow if you got the there like I put out or something like that, so people not only get what's coming, where you've been. Okay.
Okay, Michael. Gave you a difficult assignment to present a counseling session. That's a difficult assignment because you depend in counseling on engagement and back and forth. You depend on being able to see the individuals. How's each person responding to you, and how are they responding to one another? So those are key issues. So I realize this is very difficult. The biggest thing that I would say out of the blocks is what I have said to you before, and I know Chris has said to you before: slow down.
Yeah, I know. I've always before, and I'm much different sitting down talking to people than I am standing on the podium like this. Always.
But just be aware and start. Deep breath, deep breath, and then blow it out slowly, and then speak that way, slowly, okay? Because people are going to have a hard time following you if you don't. Your enthusiasm about the subject matter is admirable. The thing that's difficult when we're enthusiastic about a particular subject is that we know that better than our audience does. We know that better than our counselees do. And so part of your mission is not only to slow down, but to make sure that you're connecting the pieces. So that when you started talking about the festival and then going back to Babel, for example, excellent comparison, contrast, you did well. I'd question whether a person that didn't understand and know what those things were sufficiently informed by what you told them on the front end to understand the comparison you were making. So more information about the festival as it relates to Babel, and then when you bring the comparison together, that's when you really want to slow down. And whether you're speaking to an audience or a counselee, always engage the audience. You might notice that when I speak, sometimes I'll go, do y'all get that? I mean, am I communicating, or do you understand what I'm saying? Sometimes I'll even ask people for feedback in a counseling session. Yeah. Yeah. It's like I say, it's a difficult assignment. The other thing I would say is you've experienced probably one of the most frustrating things in terms of presentation material on the overhead, and that's when it gets off cue and you can't read the whole slide. Two things there. You will breeze through that if you have read the text 30, 40 times, and you know it so well that it's in your mind whether it's them in front of you or not. Secondly, to go over every slide in the presentation as it's in Proclaim, not just as it's in PowerPoint, because it can get converted from PowerPoint to Proclaim and get askew. But go over every single slide, read them individually, and make sure that you know them well, so that no matter what happens up there, you got a place to go. The third thing I would say is in presenting, all of your pieces did flow nicely together. I'm concerned that I would want you, whether counseling or whether presenting, to eventually have bullet points and get away from those notes in front of you, to where you can throw a bullet point on the board and you can look at it and go, okay, I know exactly where I'm going with that. You don't have to have those notes to read in front of you. You see the bullet point. A couple of things happens there. When that happens, if you're counseling, you can look at that bullet point and look up, and you've got eye contact with the people you're counseling. When it's an audience, you want the same eye contact. So if you've got a bullet point and you can actually flow in your words off of that bullet point rather than reading your text, then you're going to have better communication skills. A couple of reasons why. Number one, you're seeing your audience, and you know, I'll be up there a lot of times and I can see this face that's like, I don't get it. I don't get what he's saying. And then I can go, okay, I need to back off. I need to go in reverse a little bit, and I might even say to that person, I can see that I'm not making myself clear to you. Where did I lose you? Or where did I get lost? Or something, put it on me. How can I come back to that point that I missed connecting? So I want to actually walk away feeling like that the people in the audience have actually received all that I had for them. So think in terms of, okay, I want to communicate, and if I'm not able to see what's taking place there. Okay, so that's good. Just get away from the reading. Get to some bullet points. Excellent cross references. Your cross references were beautiful. They were really, really good, and you can since you do that so well, you need to really capitalize on that when you're communicating with people or when you're counseling people. Take advantage of the fact that you have those cross references done so well, but you need to make it to where they understand why they're important. Your cross references were spot on, but your audience, whether it's a couple, whether it's an individual, whether it's an audience of 500 people, they need to make those same connections that you've made. It's hard when one of the most difficult things is when you've studied and studied and studied. And I typically have 40 hours a week, 45 hours a week put into every message. When I have studied that much, one of the hard things for me is to realize these people don't know what I now know because I've put 40 hours in it. I'm very fortunate of a pastor if they come in here prayed up, let alone have studied the text. If they come in prayed up, I've got a place to start. If they have come in prayed up, it's very difficult to even have a starting place. But I always, when I'm teaching a series, people know where I'm going to pick up next week. Okay, if they're attentive and they're with me through the series, they're going to go, I'm going to read ahead this week. Those are the rare individuals that you will see doing this and smiling and understanding, and they're with you. But you look around and you realize that probably 95% of your audience is not that person. You're blessed to have that person, but you likely will not have many. If you've got one or two in a congregation, I had 700 people in our congregation in Arkansas. I bet I didn't have 2 out of 700 that I could count on to be reading ahead in the series like that. But I knew I was communicating with them, and I knew when I talked to them after the service or we'd go out to lunch or whatever, I knew I was communicating with them. You're going to know you're communicating by your meeting after the meeting. If the meeting after the meeting goes well, that you're just having a conversation with somebody, that's what you want to see. I want to see, are they growing and learning? Because that's how successful I was. I wasn't successful just by presenting well or having great overheads. Did my overheads communicate to them what I wanted them to learn in the process? So you came back to context several times. You know I appreciate that. Stay with the context. Understand that your audience probably doesn't have a clue what Babel is. They don't have a clue what the festivals are about or Pentecost is about. So that connection needs to be made more completely. If you do a little more work on what Babel is, a little more work on what the festival is, then when you make that connection, you can build that bridge pretty easily. Okay. Overall, I'm very pleased with what you did, and I'd be like Tom. I would say more time, energy, and effort into the work. Understand that you need to be more elaborate than you think you do because your audience doesn't know what you now know. Okay. Good solid B though. Thank you.
And also what I appreciated, you didn't say, now this is what I feel.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to me, people come to a pastor for counseling, and in their minds they want to know what the pastor thinks. And they are absolutely blown away most of the time, and I've experienced this with people. When you start sharing it in the Word, it begins to cut at them, and they don't like that. A lot of times they come for counseling to be placated.
Right.
Yeah.
See, rather than to be healed and everything like that. And when you can go, Jesus said, Jesus said, Jesus said, and you use the scripture and it's up there so they can see it, that's admirable. Just, you know, you hear pastors say, I don't care what you think. And we go by, you know, when people come to him for counseling, if they're coming to hear what he has to what he thinks, man, he ain't gonna give it to him. I'm not either.
Right. Well, lucky enough, I didn't have to, because what I'm saying here is also what I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Big thing on from the presentation side, like I say, I'm less concerned at this point, but the presentation side, very clear to slow down, connect the dots, realize people don't know as much as you do, because you put the time in, and then explain to them, and then watch them. You're not going to be able to watch them unless you've gotten away from. All right, thank you, Michael. Appreciate it.